Hey, Dream City family. My name is Derek. I'm the campus pastor up in the White Mountains. And today we're talking about our faith over our feelings. And a great Bible verse for this is 2 Corinthians 4:18. It says, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." So if we focus on the unseen, that means that the truth here is that faith means that we're anchoring our heart in what is eternal, not just reacting to what's visible and temporary. Don't we spend so much of our lives just reacting to our circumstances and our situation? This is why our feelings can fluctuate. Our circumstances are going to shift, but the good news of the gospel is that God's promises remain constant no matter what. I love what it says in Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance of things that are hoped for, the conviction of things that aren't seen. When we look at the life of Noah, his trust is what really led him to be obedient. He built the ark before a single drop of rain ever fell, and he had no physical evidence even of a coming flood. He only had the word of God, and his obedience demonstrated a faith that trusting God's voice was more important than the human reasoning. Genesis 6:22 says that Noah did everything just as God had commanded him. So I guess the question for us today is, where in our life is God calling us to trust him beyond what you can actually see or feel right now? Is it a promise that hasn't come to pass? Maybe a situation that feels impossible, a season even that you might be in that doesn't make any sense to you? I want to encourage you just to take a moment to name that area honestly before God. Think about what that area is and write it down, name it so that it's clear. You can write down the promises of God, the word of God that speaks into your situation. Keep it where you're going to see it. Maybe you put it on your mirror, your dashboard, even have it on your phone. And when doubts and fear come into your life, you can meditate on that promise and speak it out loud. This is a declaration of your faith. So here, let me give you one you can start right away with. Here in Romans 10:17, it says, "So then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God." It's the word of God that really increases our faith. Jeremiah 17:9 says that the heart is deceitful. In other words, our feelings can often be misleading. And while they're going to reflect your current circumstances or a response, they might initiate a response to your present reality, they really don't represent God's reality for us. And one of the most common feelings that we find is fear. And what's interesting is the word tells us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, and over 100 times in the Bible it says, don't be afraid. It says, fear not, because fear paralyzes us. It prevents us from actually moving forward in faith. Fear is really just misplaced trust. Fear is putting your trust in your circumstances, but faith is when you just pluck your trust out of those circumstances and you put it in God, because he's king and he's sovereign. He's sovereign over all of our situations and circumstances. Fear is always going to limit our expectations of God. Let me give you a really good biblical example. You remember Lazarus? Lazarus was sick, and his sisters were so upset with Jesus because Jesus didn't get there in time to heal Lazarus. So their fear of losing Lazarus limited their belief in what Jesus could do. They wanted a healing, catch this, but Jesus wanted a resurrection. Trusting God is always going to deliver more than we can think or imagine, while fear is always going to lead us to unmet expectation. God rarely meets our expectations, because if he always meets our expectations, how can he ever exceed them? Jesus said, "I came to give you life, and life more abundantly." And one of the keys to an abundant life is being able to walk in faith, not by my sight, what I see around me, or even my feelings. Faith isn't denying your present reality, but it's really declaring that God's reality is greater than what I feel. Fix your eyes on the eternal and let his word steady your heart. I hope you have a great day today.